Hello, everyone. This is Chala Dinkoy, CEO and founder of the Repositioning Expert, coming to you live with another Tuesday Tea Time with Chala. There's actual real tea for the first time. My goodness. It's mint tea and it's very welcome on this afternoon. It's 2:30 Eastern. I'm in Toronto and it's actually finally warm. And I am excitedly preparing to be off on Friday. This Friday, in a couple of days, I'll be in Austin doing this very topic. The title of the roundtable is going to be how to AI proof your sales and marketing. We're going to be working with, sponsored by Chase, the bank, and WPO, Women Presidents Organization. And then I'll be staying over in Austin for the weekend, and then I'll be hopping over to Salt Lake City for the WeBank conference for the whole week. We'll be there on Thursday morning, 7 a.m. early. We're going to be doing the same topic again, this time with Capital One sponsorship with my sister from another Mr. Allison QB, and we're gonna do it again. I don't know how many years in a row we've been doing it. I am so excited. And here's the topic. And really, I look for what I call clickbait titles for my content. And this is the one that I picked using AI suggestions, is that a robot will decide in the future if, and partially does now, if a B2B vendor is even worth a meeting. So let me tell you what we're talking about. And then I'm going to give you some strategies that I'm going to be actually be sharing in person in these roundtables. But if you can't make it, here's some of what I'm going to be sharing, part of that wisdom. And then the other beauty of those roundtables is that it's a peer sharing. So it's a very confidential 15-person only peer sharing. And it's that, businesses, CEOs of a certain size telling each other how they landed their last big corporate client and whether and how they used AI in doing it. So let me first give you the landscape of how AI is changing the world of sales and buying and marketing. And, I'm mostly talking about B2B. So 73%, the majority of B2B buyers now start their vendor search with asking a AI chatbot for recommendations. And although it's not at all in the same realm, I did exactly the same thing 2 weeks ago. Last week, I moved my 85-year-old mom in Ottawa to another retirement residence because we weren't happy with the one that she was at. And so I literally had no time. I had to fly in and out to be able to do this massive search, vetting, and moving. And all of that had to happen. The search, the vetting had to happen in 1 week. And then I had to go and actually do the move myself in the second week. And, so I used all my search AI chatbots and I had them filter for a whole bunch of things. And I think I've mentioned it on this live before. So I looked for, agency red flags. I looked for any complaints against them. I looked for, different, I asked all of the ChatGPT, the Claude, the Perplexity, because they all look at different sources. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So now this really interesting survey came out by a company called Loganix. So my son is Logan, so I remember the name of the company. And it's an SEO provider, and it's very relevant because they looked at hundreds and thousands of queries and results. And what they linked the queries, and they looked especially at B2B buyers. And what they looked at was the AI search converts now at 5.1 times higher than a Google ranking. So the Google organic search. So before AI, I would have just Googled, I would have typed in, best residence Ottawa. Instead, I gave it a whole huge prompt, and I use the same prompt for all three different AI and Gemini, so the four that I use, and I let them go, and I called all the top ones. And so that's what buyers are doing. They are no longer going to Google, and Google search obviously uses different methodology. It uses backlinks. It uses the SEO methodology, the keyword stuffing. And what AI uses are different things. And what AI uses is one thing and one thing alone. And I am so happy and proud that I've been teaching the same thing even way before AI. And that's to be very clear and very specifically a thought leader and a subject matter expert about one super niche. And that's all that I've ever been talking about for years and years and years and years. And that's what you will be rewarded for by AI search from now on. Let me tell you how the AI search converts. Claude converts 6x times, 6 times higher than Google. ChatGPT, if you're recommended through ChatGPT, converts to 5.1 that I mentioned, and Perplexity is 4.4. So if you're found and mentioned by Claude, it converts higher than any of them. Now, what's the problem on the end of the actual suppliers like us who are selling our services to these large corporations is that 78% of companies and their marketing departments have zero AI visibility plans, strategies, structure, knowledge. And this is what I'm trying to give to you is first the awareness that you have to do it. And then, of course, I'm going to try to give you the know-how. Google ranking is not at all equal to AI visibility. In fact, the Google top 10 ranking overlap with AI recommendations halved itself in the last 6 months. So the overlap used to be from the Google top 10 recommendations versus the AI top 10 recommendations the overlap went from 76% to 38%, meaning it's like almost you can see companies that are top recommendations in one that you would never see in the other. In fact, 2/3 of the top AI recommendations are these company names are never seen in the first landing page of the Google search. So there's a huge disparity in who's showing up and who's not. And what are they showing up for? They're showing up if your content and your branding and whatever's written that connects to your brand is extremely clear about who you help and what problem you solve and how you solve it, and case studies of who has succeeded and numeric proof of how you've succeeded. So my advice is, number one, how do you overcome this? Skipping. Why does it say skip to content? A robot will decide. Okay, I have no idea why it says that, but I have no way of fixing it. But it's gonna bug me, so I'm gonna. Here we go. I don't know why it had that. Okay, so sorry about that. See, this is what happens when it's live. You can fix stuff. Here we go. Okay, that's more like it. So I must have done something wrong while I was going live. All right, you gotta love live TV. All right, so the advice is, how do you make sure that a robot always picks you and make sure that you're worthy of a meeting? Build your marketing for AI, not SEO. So how do you do that? You become super niched in the buyer pain language. Everything that I teach is about asking buyers what is their most expensive pain point around what we can solve, and how do they language it? What do they say? What words do they use? How do they ask their friends? How do they ask, a ChatGPT? What's the prompt? So you have to find their words of pain and their topic of pain, and you have to find a super niche, which has to be super specific and in one industry. Because I'm going to show you, not only because it has to be, those words have to be industry specific, but also because where they find you, the content has to be industry relevant. So it has to be within their world. So the super niche is finding a very specific pain point. And I'll give you an example that I always give. For example, the super niche of having an generic IT company, and who through research, we super niched in one problem for healthcare. And it was the call wait time was so long in call centers for hospitals that people were hanging up and dying or getting sicker. And so that became a sub brand called On Hold Rescue. So that super niche was helping reduce call wait time for healthcare organizations in their call centers. This client made $805,000 of sale within the first couple of months with just this one super sub brand and this super niche. Okay, so that's what a super niche is. When you build your marketing around a super niche, it means you have Very clear language, words. Your website landing page is very clear about the problem and the industry that you solve it in. So your services page is very clear. What you do is very clear. You have to use their pain language and you have to use that pain. And then, of course, you can use the frequently asked questions page that on your website. You can use it in your case studies, but you need to use the words around that super niche and the pain language of your prospect. Number two is AI can easily lift into summaries proof-based content. So you have to have testimonials, case studies, anywhere in your elevator pitch. You need to have tied to numeric concrete results in these areas that are demonstrated online in as many areas as you can, that are related to that, tie back to your brand, because that's where AI recommendations are pulling from. And they actually did the study of where each different AI chatbot is pulling from, and they're all different. Some of them pull more from Reddit. For example, Gemini, of course, because it's a Google brand, pulls like 50% of its stuff from Google, but the other chatbots don't. The other AI bots don't. They take much less from there, but they're all varied. And the best way to control for, how to get recommended through those AI chatbots is to make sure that you are crystal clear first yourself in your strategy and then in your content. Now, the third step is you have to be everywhere online and offline, because offline is always online. When I'm going to do keynotes at events, those events are all online. They're all being posted. They're all in social media. They're in the agendas of the events. I'm in the emails. So everything offline is online, and vice versa. So, but put it everywhere where the industry buyers' eyes and ears are. And that's why I insist on picking an industry, one industry at a time to focus on, because industries self-gather by what they read, what they listen to, where they gather, what they care about, and they have a very strong peer groups within their own industry units. So you can put your content, the content that I mentioned, that has to be very clear and specifically based on the pain language of the buyer around that topic, in their private LinkedIn groups, on YouTube, like this, in their directories, in their Slack channels, in their industry associations, organizations. If your industry reads Reddit responses, LinkedIn reviews, review groups, procurement platforms, just every kind of listing that you can be in. You could be in a supplier portal. Anywhere you are, you could be PR guesting, you could be writing an article, a guest article, you can be in a comparison site or an industry list. I have just given you maybe like, I don't know, 20 different venues that you could use to be ubiquitously everywhere, but it has to be consistent. You have to have the same consistent message of who you help, what super niche problem you solve, and what industry you specialize in. Okay. So be everywhere, because it's pulling from all of these different areas and it's only looking for one thing, and that's expertise, repeated expertise and demonstrated expertise in that one problem, because that's how people ask. Their ask of the bots are, the prompts are around the problem. Just like when I prompted for my mom and I said, 85-year-old, can't speak because of aphasia, has the starts of a dementia, is fully mobile but needs prompting, and has to be, high design, brand new facilities, but high touch and high care, really highly recommended, no red flags, all of that stuff, right? And has to be downtown Ottawa so that it's close to my sisters, all of that. And it was perfect. I mean, I found something very quickly, even though I live in a completely different city. And it works out great. I'm praying that it's going to work out great. All right, let me take another sip. All right. So the next is give a fast next step once AI finds you so that they can jump from an AI. So, for example, give them a demo right away or let them do, they like, especially the millennial buyers who are three-quarters of the buyers now, they like the self-guided stuff. So give them a survey, give them a scorecard, give them some sort of fit check so that they can do part of it themselves, but then they're intrigued into reaching out for the other part. And then lastly, still human. We're still human. So stay human because personal still works. And so 73% of B2B buyers still expect highly personalized content and outreach. So what that means is, if you're going to go all the way out, when we do account-based marketing where we're hunting giant whales and we have a year-long strategy to get in front of them, to get a meeting with them, we actually go down to the level of getting to know the actual target person's personality and stalking them online and seeing what their hobbies are and what their passions are and if they support anything. But even getting before that is you need to have a really good idea of what the pain is, what the industry is, and how they talk about the pain. And let me give you an example and use that as your personalized outreach. So let me give you an example that I'm very proud of. One of my clients has an ad agency, and one of their specialties is reaching out to the Latino community to open doors and to gain their trust for financial institutions, because according to surveys, still a large percentage of Latino Americans have a huge distrust of large financial institutions, and so they underutilize those services. In fact, the joke is that they still keep their money under their mattress. So my clients have bought these tiny little beds that are toy beds and are sending the beds with the mattress with the message is, don't let the Latino community continue to keep their money under their mattress. Let them come to you, and so you can be their bank. And they're sending out these beds prior to the big event we have that their buyers are going to be at, and they're doing outreach before the event, and they're bringing those beds to the event. So it's highly personalized. They created this and hand wrote an actual letter and tucked it in under the bedding of the little toy bed. And how original, unique, creative, and personalized is that? Not only is it handwritten, but they actually went to the trouble of configuring a door opener that was something that's going to help their pain and convey the pain. So that's what I want for you, because don't let go of that, just because a robot's going to decide if a vendor's worth a meeting. That's part of it. And yeah, that's coming. There's some predictions, that by 2030, half of the buying will be done already. And already 61% of the buying journey is already done without ever meeting a vendor. And they don't want to meet a vendor, especially the millennials. But what I want to tell you is there's so much opportunity on the personal side. So not only has she personalized the door opener and reached out before meeting them, but she's going to be bringing it and going to an in-person event and investing in the time and the money to be there in their face with this door opener. So that's what I want for you, is for you to open the doors and to leverage, first of all. And I think AI is the best thing that could happen. Notwithstanding my fear for my 17-year-old of what job he's going to have in the future, that's not going to be replaced by AI. But I think it's great because it crystallizes what I've been saying for decades. I've been teaching the same thing, is how to get clarity through a super niche to become an expert in one tiny thing that you can hook your way into the meeting, and then you cross-sell, upsell everything else once you've been able to get your foothold through this tiny little need for a giant corporation. I hope that was good for you. I won't be here next week, but you will hear a lot when I'm back in 2 weeks about all the meetings that I had and all the wonderful businesses that I met. Stay cool. Take care.